Hey guys, I'm Rebecca and I help you build a life of creativity, freedom, and business success. And the way that I usually do that is sharing my practice of brand world building and also all of the learnings that I gathered throughout the years in my own career and personal life. So today we're going to tackle the most valuable creative skill ever, in my opinion, which is perspective. This is a part of a bigger series called Creative Freedom. So, in this series, I'm going to dive a little deeper into how that can change your life and how you can actually use that to build the life that you want, essentially. And this is also, it's going to be helpful for creatives, but also for entrepreneurs and people who are putting stuff out there and want to live more from a place of flow and ease and authentic creativity. First things that we're going to dive in today. So, the most valuable creative skill ever isn't design, isn't copywriting, isn't video editing, or anything execution based. It's not even strategy. It's not execution, not strategy, it's perspective. So, I know. Why is that the case? So essentially, we live in a world where everyone has access to the same information. And something can easily become a trend. So we're all checking the same references. We are all checking Pinterest boards, Instagram posts, YouTube videos, same trends and same references. So essentially, when someone goes and try an out of the box solution and it becomes popular, what's most certainly going to happen is people will do the same thing and they would try to jump on the bandwagon. And you've seen this multiple times, like YouTube videos start to have the same structure. People start to think about hooks. People start to think that they need to teach everyone things in order to succeed. They think they need to become an influencer. And for sure, those things do work for some people, but essentially, what we are talking about here is that there's not only one path to success. And in order to find a path that feels true to you, you have to get in touch with your authenticity. And essentially, everyone starts looking the same way. So let's talk about what perspective even is, right? What is perspective at the end of the day? Most people think perspective is an opinion. They think it's confidence, personality. Perspective actually is accumulated interpretation of something. So that's the reason why perspective is so valuable. It carries experience, it carries your curiosity, your own curiosity, it carries your observation of things. It carries your research in your own past of experimentation practices. So that's why it's something that you cannot replicate. No matter how good AI gets, it's never going to have your perspective, babe. And I'm not against AI, by the way. Perspective is not what you know. Perspective is how you connect with what you know. So, in order to understand perspective, which is such a valuable skill, by the way, you see a lot of people growing their careers and climb the corporate ladder, start business of their own. And that all comes down to growing your perspective. Because if you want to scale the leaderships, you have kind of like a leadership skill, and in order to keep climbing it, it's through building your perspective. That's how people start to consult you through things like, should we do this, should we not do that, should we try this strategy, should we not, because they value your perspective. They will pay you more because only you have your perspective, and it's your perspective that brings different results. So that's a good part. That's an important part also about perspective. So in order to understand that, let's talk a little bit more about creativity. This is a series where I dive deeper into creative freedom. So creativity is a big portion of how I think you will achieve the success that you want. But what creativity is essentially? Is it having ideas? What is it? Like only creatives need to think about creativity? Not at all. Creativity is deep engagement with reality. A lot of creative practices, they come from spending enough time with something, like really observing it, caring enough to do your own research, caring enough to understand people, and we can talk about empathy as well, and caring enough to notice things others ignore. And here's why that's important. I do a lot of branding work, so I always think about things from those lenses. But essentially, when we build brands, we are not just creating visuals, we are not just creating the copywriting, we are not just creating the sales script. We are creating human interactions. We are trying to understand people. We need to understand their struggles, their aspirations, their motivations, and their identity. You need to have some sort of empathy. You need to engage with what you're doing. If you have a business and you're not engaged with the experience of your audience at all, how do you think you're going to do branding? You need to have a creative engagement with what you're doing. And the thing about creativity is it pulls you into the present in a way that's so specific to that type of practice. So that's why you need to develop that practice. No matter what you do, if you're a salesperson, if you're an engineer, a doctor, it doesn't matter at all. So we are talking about, and I hope you can start to understand why is your perspective so valuable. So you can start to actually foster that as a practice that you have. So creativity is not at all escaping reality. Not, it's not like drawing, but it is a part of that. If you do have some other practices like drawing, writing, you're going to develop your creativity and that will be so helpful, but that's not what creativity limits itself to. Creativity is engaging with reality deep enough to notice what others miss, because on a day to day we are just not paying attention. And I think the reason why that's important, I can also like tile that to an actual example. Like I've been going a little deeper into content creation, and from like with time I start to get a little deeper on the practice. I start to actually get creative with it, because at first I was like trying to get a result and try to like, oh, there, I'll just follow the right structure for videos. I'll just do what everyone else is doing. And that's the reason why perspective and experience in your own creativity is so important, also for people who own brands. But for everyone, it's because there's a creative practice around, like for making YouTube videos. Like there's a way, a process. If you're a process driven person, you're going to implement and engage with your process, and your videos will reflect that. For instance, for this video, I actually got sorry, I got the idea to actually journal the concept before scripting it. And I'm sure like that makes this video different than the other ones, because I spend a little more time engaging with the reality of making this video. You know, it's not about, if I was just, hey Chad, can you give me a script for this idea? Which I did use ChatGPT a little bit, but it was as a way to help the mechanical parts of this work. But if I were to like not engage with the process, the video would feel flat. So I hope you kind of understand why I'm talking about like how creativity is this deep engagement with reality, and why doesn't that matters, for instance, for like a business owner that has no time to like scribble on their journal or anything like that. It's about like that engagement, that connection part, because a brand needs to connect with people. It needs to connect with what the brand is doing, what the brand is putting out into the world. Because get this, brands are also creatives. What? I mean it. Brands are creatives. You've seen like throughout time, like how they participated in culture in a way, like with propaganda, with like introducing, we have like the Michelin stars for restaurants, and how a brand can be such a big part of a culture like that. Brands are creatives. The reason why for the Michelin stars, it was because I think they had a publication in the 30s, if I'm not mistaken. And it was like a travel kind of thing, indicating like restaurants for people to visit. And that's how they pretty much became like this huge sort of like awards thing. So like this is how deep you can go into the culture, essentially, when you are engaging with reality. Pretty much already mentioned this, but I started journaling as a creative process of the content that I do. And I have copywriters, I have video editors, I have people that help me. But if I would just throw things at them without engaging with the activity, it's just way worse. So there is like a line of thoughts that starts the little seeds that then become content. So I'm just sharing like my personal experience and what I use to build my own perspective. It can be journaling, it can be passion projects, it can be multiple things. But the key elements here is that perspective compounds. Perspective is one of those like few assets that becomes more valuable over time. You actually grow your perspective. It's like an investment if you think about it. If you're building your perspective and you keep that practice, it's like such a huge investment for you. Like I'm so happy if you do that. And for me, like my perspective involves a lot around like activities such as sports, traveling, reading, drawing, conceptualizing, directing, experimentation through passion projects. I can't recommend that enough. Like nothing is wasted when it comes to perspective because it's all about your experience. The thing that you can do is actually turn it into something unique to you. So every experience becomes raw material for perspective. The people with the strongest perspective usually spend the longest time paying attention to things and building their point of view. How cool is that you can just live your life and that's in an authentic way and that's something valuable. If you do it the right way, if you foster and you really develop your perspective. So, why is it that perspective creates value? People think they hire just because of execution. I mean, you can get hired for execution, and by the end of this series, I will advise people not to do that. I'm gonna end this series like talking a little bit more to the leadership people and the business owners and how they can hire the right people because I think that ties well with how creative freedom is not a nice to have, is actually a growth strategy. But essentially, the reason why perspective is so valuable for companies is because people hire specific people because of how they think. The best opportunities will come from that. It's how they see problems, the questions that they ask, and the meaning that they create. This is something impossible to replace. It's just impossible. You can get someone to do a monogram with a specific style that you saw on Pinterest for sure, but you cannot replace their perspective. You can't. You're not the only person with technical skills, but you're the only person with your perspective. So I hope this helped you understand why you should pay attention to building your perspective, why creative freedom is not a nice to have, and why your authenticity and unique point of view is basically necessary to help differentiate your work and it's key in your success. So, perspective doesn't emerge from talent, it emerges from engagement, from curiosity, observation, experimentation, and basically just paying attention. And eventually, if you develop it long enough, perspective becomes something else entirely. It becomes judgment, decision making, and of course, leadership. And well, leadership is like you're climbing and your value is higher. So that's where creative freedom starts becoming a system instead of an idea. So I think this is all from like that specific point of this series. So basically what I mean with all of that is that you have already like something so valuable, and if you understand that inside of you, you're already super, super valuable. If you get in touch with that and you keep nurturing it, the possibilities are endless. Thank you so much, guys. And I'll see you on the next ride. And remember, the possibilities are endless. And stick through like the next video in this series. I'm going to give a very practical framework for developing your own creative freedom and just having the life that you want. Essentially, it's a practical thing that you can do. And it's pretty much that, super simple. And if you like this kind of insights, be sure to subscribe to my newsletter. And that'll be all for today. Thank you so much.